What does it mean to be adopted?
It means you grew up in your mommy's heart instead of her tummy.
Most of us greet each day by anticipating that things will go well, or at least according to some plan we have laid out. Perhaps we'll complete a personal goal, have a chance to meet with friends, or enjoy the great outdoors. We also realize the day may bring pain and anguish due to unexpected hardship. For some, the days of grief and trial far outweigh the days of plenty and blessing. Grief and trial that can leave life void of a fundamental need shared by all of us, an identity and the security of a place among family. Many in this world have become homeless and without parents due to natural or man-made disasters. Sometimes mankind's poor decisions, made without constraint or regard to the effect of consequences, put a child in a situation where identity is confused and the place among family is anything but secure. God, in all his wisdom, seeing the plight of men and women in this world, instituted and modeled the remedy for these situations: adoption. Adoption is the act of taking by choice into relationship. It is the voluntary taking of a child, of other parents, as one's own child. Holy Scripture reveals the heart of God and his passion for adoption. In the Psalms he says that he will be a father to the fatherless, and that he will defend the poor and the fatherless, and do justice to the afflicted and the needy. He offers to us adoption into his kingdom, as it says in Romans 8, verse 15. For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. God's call for adoption is not only a parallel to the spiritual, but for meeting the practical needs of people in this life as well. Jesus illustrated his love and concern for those in need of a family with some of his last words from the cross. Seeing Mary, his earthly mother, standing next to John, Christ directed them to adopt each other as he said, "Woman, behold your son." Then to his disciple he said, "Behold your mother." John himself writes, "From that hour he took her to his own home." People are aroused to compassion by stories of children left orphaned through ravages of war and other crises. One example is the events in Romania in the late 1980s and early 90s, where the need for adoption brought hundreds into that country to defend orphans in an act the Apostle James refers to as pure and undefiled religion. For 75 years in the United States, a process referred to as the orphan train was operated by groups such as the Children's Aid Society. Rail cars carried thousands of street children from the large metropolitan areas of the East to rural towns throughout the Midwest, where common families took them into their homes. Hands were extended out of compassion or simply because they needed more help on the farm. But regardless, many children found an opportunity to be cared for and a place to belong. This country's current teen pregnancy crisis has also led families to throw out the lifeline of adoption. The high level of teens in crisis, unable to fully care for a child, has increased the number of children who may depend on adoption for a thriving life. Regardless of the circumstances that generate the need for adoption, the reasons for wanting to adopt can vary. It may be the move of God on the heart of a couple who have already raised a family, or it could be a young couple who could never have children of their own. One thing is usually certain: The process is neither inexpensive nor easy. Joy Casey is a director of YWAM Adoption Ministries in Puyallup, Washington. She and her associates understand the hardships facing women who are going through an unplanned pregnancy. They are also sensitive to the frustration and disappointment of young couples who have tried to have children of their own but cannot. And they know how difficult it is to adopt when faced with the enormous legal fees so many agencies require.
We wanted to start an adoption agency where there were no fees involved with adoption at all. It's not an easy ministry because you're dealing with people that are in high emotions. You're dealing with families that desperately want a child and are navigating waters they've never gone down before.
This road may not be easy, but we know God works all things out to the good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. The gift of life is precious. The gift of love is eternal. All around we see life without love, but the gift of adoption is germinated out of love. It is reciprocal, giving children to families and family to children. Dean's mother was taken from him and his sister when he was 12 years old, and being adopted at that age had its ups and downs. Accustomed to an undisciplined life, and by his own admission a troublemaker, Dean found himself in an odd situation. He had lived with his mother and multiple stepfathers before her death. Now, a local minister welcomed Dean and his sister into his family.
My school teachers expected me to goof off and get bad grades, and that's how they saw me. And my parents, my real parents, had a certain way that I had just grown up. So I was kind of the troubled kid who didn't look like he had a good future, which is kind of interesting. And when I ended up getting adopted and became a pastor's kid, it was like this whole new course was set for my life. I'm getting used to being in a new family, and all of a sudden all this discipline, it was shocking. But the one thing that my new parents always gave me was unconditional love, and probably to the extent that I hadn't seen really before. And so it was like a fresh start. And getting that fresh start, it was like a whole new set of opportunities for me, that I could be somebody new now. I could be the kid who wasn't always in trouble. I could be a good kid. I was seen with different eyes. I was seen with fresh eyes, and maybe my dad saw me, maybe how God saw me. He saw the best in me, and so it naturally brought the best out in me.
We all speculate about personal events and challenges we face, and what the results might have been had things been different. For Dean to raise these questions is only natural and necessary when considering his destiny in life. The outcome for Dean might not have been so good, given his situation, had it not been for the extended hand of a loving family. He currently serves as a minister in a Seattle church.
If my family wouldn't have adopted me, it's hard to say exactly what my life would be, but I don't know that the other families would have had such a solid foundation of Jesus Christ. So having said that, I think there's a lot of possibilities of the path my life could lead. It has not only changed the course of my life for the better, but I just believe that it's really shaped who I am for the better.
Most adoption scenarios are bred out of hardship, like the deaths of parents, divorce, or desertion. Another of these hardships is the unprepared, unplanned pregnancy of an unmarried teenager. Fortunately, there are organizations in our communities that work with young women in these situations, helping them to discover what gift is best for their child. While we would never advocate abortion as a viable option, it would be unfair to say that adoption is necessarily the best solution in all cases. We might all know men and women who choose the role of a single parent and have done so effectively. However, many young women have found the adoption solution, though extremely difficult, to be the best way for them to express their love for their child.
This is a huge decision. It's a life-changing decision for young women that are facing a pregnancy that they feel they can't cope with at the time. It's a very difficult decision to make. A lot of times it takes months for them to go through the process and to meet with our counselor and talk about all the ramifications. The best case scenario is that we can have everyone in her support system on board with her to make that decision. And it's very difficult. But once she has come to the place of saying, yes, this is what I want for my child, then we talk about, what does she want in a family? What is she looking for her child?
Whitney is one of these birth mothers who at the age of 16 found herself in a situation that she was not prepared for.
Initially, when I found out I was pregnant, I called my sister in my room to tell her, and her first response was, oh, we can fix this, like, leading up that we can have an abortion. And immediately when that was, placed on the table, I had her knock on my door, and my stepmother walked in, and she was crying. So she sat down, and she told me that during her nightly devotion, she was led to come in and tell me something that she'd never told anyone. So she ended up telling me that when she was 18, she'd had an abortion. Her decision was something that started really, hurt her to that day. And she didn't know why God had wanted me to hear that, but she knew that I needed to hear it. So I kind of brushed it off because I didn't know how to handle the situation. I went and talked to her later, but I knew from that moment that God had, stepped in immediately and intervened, and I knew that I was going to place Seth for adoption.
Unmarried, distraught, confused, and under pressure from some family members to have an abortion, she sought the help and advice of a Christian adoption organization.
They just wanted to educate me on what adoption was, and I think that I immediately, was responsive because that was my first choice. So after that, they helped me lay out a plan of, the pros and cons of keeping my child, to help me walk through mentally what my reasoning was so that I didn't go back on my decision.
With all that was going on in her life, including physical stress from pregnancy and anxiety driven by family pressure, Whitney stood by her decision to sustain life for her child. Now the love that would keep her going for those 9 months propelled her to another important decision: which family on whom to pass the torch of parental responsibility, a family she believed would love and nurture her birth son, Seth. Though not connected in any way with the adoption of Whitney's child, John and Carrie have experienced the process and fulfillment of adopting 2 children. They have witnessed love in action by young women who placed the precious lives they bore into another home, all for the sake of their child.
To choose to place a baby in an adoptive home, I can only imagine is the most difficult choice that anyone would ever make. For a birth mom to carry a baby to term, and you don't think you could help but to bond to that child that you're carrying. And if you're loving that child enough to choose adoption, then you're also, wanting to nurture and take care of and, treasure that baby. So I know that moment of relinquishment is not an easy moment. I've watched it, I've witnessed it with 2 birth moms, and it's been really hard to watch. When Caleb was born and we first met him, it was a special moment because his birth mom wanted to actually give him to us personally. He was delivered via cesarean, and so after she was awake and with it, she wanted us to come into her hospital room, and she handed him to us and said, "Meet your son." Just like that. I don't know how she did it.
For a mother such as Whitney to follow through with the plan is certainly not an easy road. Society's view on adoption, many times distorted by lack of education or by wrong perceptions of motive, put added pressure on the women involved and even on the adoptive parents.
I'd say the number one thing that I heard from people when I was first carrying around my little Sarah Grace, and obviously hadn't given birth to her, was that the question was, how could anyone give this baby up? You know, she was so precious and so cute. And I would always just think, you know, it was just love. And that is why. She knew she did the right thing. She lovingly chose the right family. And she, Sarah's birth mom, picked us. I don't know why, but she did. And it was just love. So, but it really did reflect the view that people had and the kind of criticism that she might have received. Why? How could you ever give that baby up?
Society has, I think, mixed, views on adoption. I don't think they know the process and the reasons that people place children for adoption. They usually think it's because, women don't want to sacrifice things or aren't willing to do the things that are necessary for a child, which I feel isn't true in a lot of cases. It's usually because they know that they can't provide those things and they're willing to give up something so precious as a child.
Women of all ages and backgrounds finding themselves with an unplanned pregnancy have a legal right in the United States to choose an abortion. Not only is it legal, but preferred, sadly enough, by so many people and organizations that work hard to coerce the public into accepting this decision. Surely a mother who looks to adoption as a better choice is in fact extending a great gift to that child.
When we talk to young women that are considering abortion, we understand that in the short term, abortion looks pretty easy. It looks like the easy way out of a very difficult situation. I understand what these girls are facing. Many of them are right up against a rock and a hard place, and they don't have a lot of options. They don't have a lot of places to turn. Many times, if they don't get the abortion, they may be kicked out of their house.
To choose to carry the baby and to put the baby up for adoption then is a really major decision and commitment to do something that society would say you don't have to do, because the norm would just be to take care of this problem and just move on.
For all prospective parents, the road ahead is never smooth or predictable. Whether the path is biological conception and birth, or if it detours over the trail of adoption, parents will experience similar levels of anxiety, excitement, learning, and waiting. And reward. Much, much reward. Only God knows and sees His ultimate purpose in how and where He leads our lives. He says that children are a blessing, and He alone decides how He will deliver that blessing. The fulfillment of His perfect plan might be to multiply one's own seed and populate the family. Some, having already conceived children, respond to a special call from God and pursue adoption as well. For others, like John and Carrie, God calls them to it in another way.
We decided to adopt after about 8 years of desiring children. We were married in 2000, and our plan was simple. We were going to wait a year and then start having babies. And God just didn't have that in mind for us. At the time, that was really hard to come to terms with. Why is God not giving us what we know is a good thing, and it's His desire to give children to families? He taught us a lot about Himself through that period of time, and then after some, pursuing some different options, we just decided that we needed to pursue what we knew was a good thing, and that was children.
Since John and Carrie had friends who had experienced it themselves, they turned there for advice and made the decision to walk the path as well. No journey in life is simple or easy, and the adoption experience is no different. Depending on the situation, couples may be subject to legal decisions, government authorities, or selection by the adoption agency or by the biological birth parents. Like any special event or occasion in life, we are able to recall those special moments with great precision. We remember the good ones with such fondness that we can often recall the weather, who we were with, or the music playing when we received some wonderful announcement. Even the most ordinary things stand out. News of being selected as adoptive parents will forever secure a place in the hearts and minds of those who receive it.
I vividly remember both days that we got the call, the long-awaited call that said, there's a baby waiting for you or about to be born. They're like vivid days. But they didn't start out that way. That's the funny thing. They started out just being like any other day.
When we finally did get a call, it was a teenage girl who was going to have a baby in 2 or 3 weeks, who wanted to meet with us. What we didn't know is that she had already decided, before meeting us, she had decided that she wanted us to be the parents of the baby girl that she was going to have. She had been looking at our pictures and thinking about us for weeks before that.
And she had just been saying, when do we get to meet him? I want to meet them, and we want to get together, and I want to tell them that, what's coming in their lives. And she was just like so excited. We had an awkward dinner and tried to eat. And then afterwards, she said, well, I have something for you guys, and pulled out a baby book with, it said it's a girl on the front. That was just so special to know that she had chosen us.
The process of legalization comes with its moments of excitement and finality. It requires an appearance in court, one of the rare times when the subjects are happy to be there. The event necessitates a loving declaration and commitment, with the result of sealed sonship or daughtership forever, and reminds us of the relationship we can have with the Heavenly Father.
Court day is fun. Court day is fun because we get to have our friends come and join us in the courtroom, and we get to just, celebrate the fact that these children are forever ours, and they will be in our home forever. Their birth certificate at that point is officially changed to reflect our last name, and
the paperwork says something along the lines of, on this day, the judge declares that this child is now yours as if it was born to you.